Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful, amazing, wonderful people. I hope you are all well on this wonderful, wonderful midweek hump. Wonderful Wednesday, midweek hump. Can't get better than that, can you? You're looking amazing. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. This is video 2 of 2, and a bit of a day of it today. Bit of a controversial day. Video 1, we spoke about Cellbrite and the fact that they've done this article that would seem to suggest that Bryan Kohberger did indeed shut his phone off. Not only did he shut his phone off, he went through a specific methodical way of doing it to mean that that phone could not be tracked, which has remained a question for me for some time, because even up to recently, Bill Thompson had seemingly suggested the phone might have been switched off. It appeared to have been switched off, but he didn't undeniable. He didn't state the phone was off. We know the phone was off. We know he switched it off. And that's the problem with the Cellbrite article. There is probably 3 instances in that article that completely contradicts the lead prosecutor. So it's problematic. But I can't ignore it because it's there. It exists. And to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist would be wrong. Disingenuous, and I'm not. Do you know what I mean? I'm still in the process of trying to process everything that we know and what we don't know. But in this video, I want to talk about something because someone reached out to me a few days ago, and it was talking about, we've gone backwards and forwards a bit. I think JD Investigates, and we had spoken about Bryan Kohberger and Gill, and he'd asked me what it would take for me to believe that Bryan Kohberger was guilty, and I'm going to do a video specifically on that probably tomorrow. Some things that I find problematic, and we got onto an appeal, the appeal, because that's what many of us are waiting for. We're waiting to see whether Bryan Kohberger appeals. Now, Jeff Nye, he would turn around and basically say, look, if the guy appeals, it's going to come to our office, and it would appear that Nye will just turn around and say bollocks. So it could be a bit futile anyway. And I think that there's a lot of people who don't fully understand US law. There's certainly elements of US law that I don't understand. I won't pretend to. But people think of the appeal, I think, like they feel that Bryan Kohberger has pled guilty. He can now appeal, and ultimately that would mean that the appeal could be accepted and he could walk free. And that's not how it works. And I don't mean to do this video to be condescending. I'm just trying to get my head round why he would have accepted a plea deal in order to get out of a trial that could have led to the death penalty, when ultimately to appeal now would just put him straight back in the exact same position as he was in prior to it. Now, does that make sense? Does it make sense that someone would enter into a plea, they would accept it, they would say, yeah, I did it, I'm guilty, I did it, I'm accepting guilt. Hitler covered all his bases, as Jeff Nye stated, with respect of saying, I know what I'm doing, I'm happy with everything, I know I'm willingly accepting everything, and I'm saying I did it. That is so later on he can't turn around and change his fucking mind. It's going to make it a lot more difficult for him to appeal, because they've covered some of the grounds, or if not all of the grounds, that he would have to appeal on, which, again, as aforementioned, could make any appeal attempt futile anyway, based on the fact that it's going to go through Nye's office. But look, would somebody do that? Would somebody go through all of that, which then makes it even harder statistically for him to be found guilty, to be found innocent, later on down the line, because generally appeals don't work. They do not work on the grander scheme of things, especially in this situation. So I don't get it. I don't fully understand it. I don't know whether there's something, or I didn't think there was anything that would make it make sense. But then I thought to myself, look, the only way that this makes sense, the only possible thing that would make this entire situation make sense, is if Bryan Kohberger was never going to appeal. He wasn't going to appeal. The entire situation was just purely meant to allow the public to have all of the information, to get all of the information out there. so everybody could see and everybody could see what was happening, what wasn't happening, how this investigation went, the kinks in the armor, so to speak, and potentially something come off the back end of that. That's the only thing in my eyes that makes sense. To put yourself in a position where you have a fighting chance, because it would appear from prior to all this that from what we've learned, or what we had learned, the case was relatively weak. We still have some, like the video I did earlier, conflicting statements between Bill Thompson and even the likes of Selbright. Selbright saying that they absolutely know that Bryan Kohberger turned his phone off. It seems that he connected on the Wi-Fi at the Mad Greek restaurant, which would then offer a connection potentially to Xana and Maddie, despite the lead prosecutor saying there is no fucking connection. So I don't understand what is going on with it. I have to acknowledge that they've said what they've said, but again, it's problematic, and it's problematic for the reasons that I've stated. I wish that I could ignore the things that they've said that do contradict what Bill Thompson says, because then at least we'd have some evidence that you can say, okay, if Selbright is saying he switched his phone, it is a fucking red flag. But anyway, back to the point. The point being, if Bryan Kohberger was innocent of this crime, this is where this all comes in. If he's innocent of the crime, why would you take a plea deal? Why would you take a plea deal that the only real thing that's going to happen here, in a good thing, is you appeal, you take a deal, you appeal, and you get put right back to where you fucking started and have to go through the process anyway? Is it just to get the information out there so that the people around it, the public, everybody, they have more information that perhaps Ann Taylor didn't have the time to go through and get out and address herself? And I suppose that's the question now. And you guys are from the US. You know, I'm not. I'm a fucking alien to the area. I don't know what I'm talking about. All I'm doing is looking at information and trying to make sense of it. And when people come to me and they say, look, this is the issue here with respect to Bryan Kohberger, and I apologise if I seem to be going around in circles, it's just how my brain works, because I'm trying to make sense of it. And it is a question. Why would somebody take a plea bargain to then just appeal it later on down the line to go back into the trial? It doesn't, the appeal doesn't mean he walks free. It just means that he gets put back into the realms of having to head towards a fucking trial again, where he would ultimately face a death penalty again. So the only question here comes, is there a benefit in this situation to more information being in the public domain in this instance? Or will Bryan Kohberger just not appeal? Because the best thing that can happen is, with all of the information out there, will somebody take the bull by the horns and ride it all the way to finding that there is something seriously wrong, something missing, and there is someone else involved in this crime, and therefore Bryan Kohberger is exonerated on the basis that new evidence is brought to light from a third party that proves that he didn't do it? That's the only thing that now makes sense here from a Bryan Kohberger being innocent perspective. So, in my opinion, we are heading into the realms of, is Bryan Kohberger involved in this crime, and is he protecting his family because there is fear of ramifications if he does not? Because as time progresses, it's getting more and more difficult to understand the reasoning behind taking this plea deal that was not a good deal. It wasn't a good deal if best case scenario is he appeals and has to go through it anyway. I don't understand that. If I am missing something, then please help me understand more down below. Because again, this comes from a place of ignorance. This comes from a place of not fully understanding everything. But my new understanding of it all is that the best case scenario after an appeal here is that he will literally just start the process again. And will anything change? Will the biased nature around this case, this trial, just dissipate? Will it vanish into the fucking ether? I don't see it. Explain to me down below. Help me understand, because from where I'm sitting at the moment, as time is progressing, the less this seems to make sense, and I can't see him. I just can't see an appeal coming, and it looks like it would just get denied anyway. So was there a different plan? Love you all. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Mwah.